This is the story of the Bronze Age of comics in under 8 minutes. The Bronze Age of comics ran from 1970 until 1985. While it retained many conventions of the Silver Age, it was best noted for its darker plot elements and storylines relating to relevant social issues such as racism, drug use, alcoholism, urban poverty, and environmental pollution. Strictly speaking, the 1970s is not a heroic age, as it was distinguished mainly by monsters, sword and sorcery, and anti-heroes. It does serve, however, as an important transition to today's superhero comics. It was when comic creators began to become stars in their own right. Beginning in Green Lantern number 76, cover dated May 1970, the series set a new standard for realism and social commentary in comics. Denny O'Neil and Neal Adams turned Green Lantern into a critique of American society. A critical, if not financial, success, this series became highly influential in terms of both art and story. After 102 consecutive issues of the Fantastic Four, written by Stan Lee and drawn by Jack Kirby, Kirby would move on to DC Comics. With Jack Kirby's departure, it ended what was arguably the most important creative partnership of the Silver Age. Making his debut with issue 133 of Superman's pal, Jimmy Olsen, he would introduce the concept and characters of his Fourth World epic. The following month, in November of 1970, Darkseid would debut in Jimmy Olsen number 134. Conan the Barbarian kicked off the sword and sorcery boom in comics in October of 1970, released by Marvel. This popular genre would grow to include such books as Cole the Conqueror and Savage Tales at Marvel Comics, and Warlord, Kamandi, and a Tarzan revival at DC. Marvel would later develop its own brand of 1970s hero, combining elements of sword and sorcery with the horror genre in Marvel Spotlight number 12, the introduction of Son of Satan. In May of 1971, the Green Goblin Reborn story arc began in The Amazing Spider-Man number 96. Written by Stan Lee and drawn by Gil Kane and John Romita Sr., it is recognized as the first mainstream comic publication to portray and condemn drug abuse, and was published without the Comics Code Authority's seal of approval. The positive reception to the Green Goblin Reborn storyline would see the Comics Code revised. Soon afterward, DC Comics' Denny O'Neil and Neal Adams would tackle drug abuse in the pages of Green Lantern Green Arrow 85 and 86, with the storyline entitled Snowbirds Don't Fly. June of 1971 saw the introduction of Swamp Thing in DC Comics' House of Secrets number 92. The most significant DC character introduced in the 1970s, Swamp Thing quickly received his own title by November of 1972. His success paved the way for future popular DC horror suspense titles, such as Hellblazer and Sandman. In 1972, Marvel Comics would form Marvel UK, the British arm of their publishing empire. In June of 1972, Stan Lee began his long-running monthly column, Stan's Soapbox. Ghost Rider made his first appearance in Marvel Spotlight number 5 from August of 1972. Marvel had introduced Werewolf by Night 3 issues earlier in number 2, but by number 5 they were able to bring the supernatural creature a step closer to being a conventional hero with Ghost Rider. Along with Swamp Thing, Ghost Rider is one of the most unique characters of the 1970s era. Success in the 1970s led to the creation of other supernatural creature heroes, such as Morbius in Amazing Spider-Man number 101. June of 1973 saw the release of the legendary storyline, The Night Gwen Stacy Died, beginning in the pages of Amazing Spider-Man number 121. February of 1974 saw the first appearance of the Punisher in Amazing Spider-Man number 129. He was the first of the heavily armed vigilante type. The Punisher has influenced a legion of imitators since his debut. October of 1974 gave us our first glimpse of the psychiatric hospital, Arkham Asylum, in the pages of Batman number 258. November of 1974 saw the debut of Wolverine in Incredible Hulk number 181. Highly successful and widely imitated, Wolverine has become one of Marvel's most popular solo characters. The new X-Men appeared in Giant Size X-Men number 1, released in the summer of 1975. This new group brought characterization and team interaction in comics up another notch. Along with Spider-Man, the mutant books formed the foundation for today's Marvel Universe, and led to great fame and popularity for many solo mutants. In August, Uncanny X-Men number 94 was released, the first issue of the title to feature the new X-Men. It was written by Chris Claremont, who would write the title continuously for 17 years. 1976 saw the release of Superman vs. the Amazing Spider-Man, the very first major intercompany crossover. On February 26, 1977, the British comic magazine 2000 AD was first published. The following month, Judge Dredd would debut in the second issue. Only a month after that, in April of 1977, American science fiction and fantasy comics magazine Heavy Metal hit the shelves for the first time. Writing legend Dave Sim would debut Cerebus the Aardvark on December 31st, 1977. That same day, John Byrne and Terry Austin would begin their acclaimed run as penciler and inker of X-Men, beginning with issue number 108. The infamous DC implosion occurred on June 22, 1978, when DC announced staff layoffs and the cancellation of approximately 40% of its line. That same year, Jim Shooter would take the mantle as editor-in-chief at Marvel Comics. 1979 would see the release of the epic 9-issue story arc Demon in a Bottle, dealing with Iron Man Tony Stark's alcoholism. In May of 1979, Frank Miller would take over as the regular penciler on Daredevil with issue number 158. 1980 would see the release of one of the most memorable X-Men stories in history, the 10-part Dark Phoenix saga, written by Chris Claremont and drawn by John Byrne. What most historians consider the end of the Bronze Age would be the 1985 DC Comics event Crisis on Infinite Earths. At Marvel Comics, the commonly used milestone marking the end of the Bronze Age is the Secret Wars. Though critics continue to claim otherwise, this brief summary shows that the superhero genre has undergone continuous refinement. The superheroes have taken the best elements of other genres inside and outside the field and adapted them to the fullest advantage the medium has to offer. As creators continue to push the limits of comics as an art form, the superhero genre will continue to adapt to those new techniques and hopefully grow in unimagined ways. This has been the story of the Bronze Age of comics in under 8 minutes.